yes. Travel. There's so much more to life than just staying in the same place all the time. Travel is an investment in yourself. We couldn't agree more. Welcome to the Know Where You Want to Go Travel Podcast. You'll get recaps of recent travel, advice on where to go, and why to go there in the future. We'll talk about the news that's impacting travel, and we'll cover some places that you may never have even thought about going. We've been planning personal and corporate travel for over 15 years, and it's our passion to help you discover new places. Buckle your seatbelts, order up your favorite food or drink, and let's do this. This is the Know Where You Want to Go Travel Podcast. And now your host, Cam DeYoung.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Know Where You Want to Go Travel Podcast. My name is Cam DeYoung and I am your host. And today we're going to talk about work-life balance just a bit. But the important aspect of it is how important it is for us to all find that balance, and really for the sake of our podcast, finding that balance through travel. To talk about that today, I have a very special guest and a fellow Elon University alum, and I'm very happy about that too, Angela Myers. And Angela is a freelance health writer and a content strategist, and she has had her work appear in Forbes, AARP, and in other publications. She's an avid traveler, having visited 39 countries and counting. That's quite a bit. So Angela, I'm going to turn it over to you, and please tell the audience here about yourself, a little bit about your background.
I'm Angela. I'm a healthcare writer. I currently run a freelance writing business, and I've had the privilege of working with a lot of really amazing names in the healthcare space. So I work with 3 different client types. The first is like B2C healthcare companies who are communicating with the general public about their own business. The second is B2B companies that are communicating with generally healthcare organizations or private practices about different technologies or different workflows that they could add to improve the administrative side of healthcare. And then the third is writing for media outlets. So that's like Forbes, AARP, Well and Good, others in that space. And I love being a freelancer because you can have so much variety in the projects that you can take on. So some of the projects, for example, are like SEO updates. Other ones are very traditional reporting where I'm interviewing subject matter experts on breaking healthcare news. And that sort of variety of work is amazing. And it also allows me to grow a lot as a professional.
That's so great to be able to work in healthcare marketing. It's been an area of focus for me as well over the years. And it's just so great to be able to contribute in such a good way to an industry that is so very important to all of us. So tell me a bit about how you balance these trips, your trips you take and work, and also tell us a little bit about your favorite place. What's your favorite country that you've ever visited?
Another really great perk of running a freelance business is that I can really control a lot of my schedule. So that has given me the opportunity to travel. Total in my life, I've traveled to 38 countries. I have a list saved on my phone. While working, I think that number's definitely lower. Probably somewhere between 14 to 20 countries. And so I guess I'll focus on kind of those more recent travels while working. And one of my favorite places I've traveled to, and one of the most exciting, was Vietnam. I really loved Vietnam because it was a really great mix of culture, and the Vietnamese people are really open with sharing their culture with people from other countries, which I really loved and appreciated. And there's also a lot of really great adventures you can have while there. One of my favorites was that I motorbiked the Ha Giang Loop, which is on the border of Vietnam and China, and it's one of the most dangerous motorcycle loops in the world, but also one of the most beautiful. Full disclaimer, I was a passenger princess and was riding on the back of a skilled Vietnamese person's motorbike versus motorbiking myself. But it was just a really amazing 4-day motorbiking tour through the Vietnamese countryside. every night we would stop at a different homestay and they would kind of explain their culture. They would give us traditional meals, traditional drinks, and it was just a really great way to really experience life from a different perspective than the one I was used to growing up in the US.
Oh, wow. That is so awesome. That sounds like so much fun throughout the entire time there in Vietnam. And I want to put that on my list of places to go for sure. So speaking of places that we want to go and where you want to go, what's on your dream list? What's on that dream travel list of the next place that you want to visit or where you want to visit in the future?
So I think like many travelers, I have a lot of dream destinations that I have yet to have been to. But one that is really front of mind because I'm hoping to go there later this year is Costa Rica. I'm excited about Costa Rica because I speak Spanish, and so it's really a great opportunity to practice my second language. I love that whenever I go and travel in Latin America. And I've also heard Costa Rica has a lot of really amazing travel and adventures and hiking. So I'm looking forward to doing that while there.
Costa Rica is so absolutely fabulous and beautiful. I'm so glad that I was able to go there. And it's interesting, we talk about work-life balance, and that was actually the first trip that I took. And this was about 12 years ago, I think. But this was the first trip that I took where I said, I am not going to turn on a work phone. And I ended up turning it on during a trip for better or worse. But it's definitely a place you want to go and just disconnect from the rest of the world. So speaking of work-life balance, let's get into that a little bit. Talk about your thoughts there and how you handle work and life and travel all together.
Yeah, so I think the first thing I want to say is that the idea of work life balance is one that I've reflected on a lot throughout my career. And I'm not 100% sure that work life balance fully exists or it doesn't always look the same, in my opinion. So there's definitely times where there's weeks where I'm working 60, 70-hour weeks, and then weeks where I'm working maybe 10 hours or completely taking off and taking a vacation. And I really like having that sort of flexibility. And instead of looking at it like I need perfect work life balance every single day, instead kind of looking at it from a big picture and kind of I'll analyze each quarter how many hours I worked, how many days I took off. Did I feel like that was enough? Did I feel like it wasn't enough? How's my mental health doing? And so being able to look at it from a bigger picture can be really great. I also think that's a really great way to fully take advantage of your travel time because if you're kind of looking at it more like, okay, maybe I need to hustle a bit this week, but next week I'm going to go on vacation. Or I'm going to take more time off to see something really cool in some sort of destination. That's really a fantastic way to look at work life balance, too. I think it's really a personal decision what your work to life ratio is. I will say something that's been very interesting to me in my travels is that we almost always have time to do things. So there's been weeks where I have had almost a completely booked week with client work, right? And then someone says, "Oh, hey, we're all going to go on this really cool hike or we're going to go to this really cool castle. Do you want to come?" And somehow I've always found a way to rearrange my schedule if I truly want to experience that travel adventure. And so I think that's kind of something that you need to think about is that there's usually time and workarounds if you get truly creative with your schedule. The other thing I wanted to touch on here is this idea. When I was first traveling, I thought I would really have to sacrifice my career in order to travel. Fast forward, I've been traveling full time now for 3 years and have made six figures in my business every single year. So for me, that's a really healthy amount. I average working somewhere between 30 to 40 hours a week. And I really just kind of take advantage of my time off. So kind of it's not always in the evenings because also with time zones, a lot of times how I'll work is I'll work in the mornings and then I'll take off in the afternoons and then I'll log back on in the evening. But a lot of times, a lot of my travels nowadays are in kind of the European time zones. And so the way I think about it is I work in the mornings on deep work and then I take off in the afternoons and then I log back on in the evenings slash late afternoons when Americans are all logged on and that's kind of like work hours in the US. And that sort of like flexibility has been really good. There really is enough time in the day to kind of accomplish all of your career goals and also all of your travel goals. The one thing I will say there is if you do want to be a full-time digital nomad, you have to commit to kind of completing your work first. You have to be able to commit to keeping those deadlines, to being responsive within Eastern Standard Time hours. There's definitely been times when I've been in Thailand, for example, and I am calling someone a subject matter expert for an interview at like 2 a.m. And you just kind of have to be able to be flexible and work around it and really define to you what is important in my career, what am I not going to sacrifice, where can I sacrifice to travel more, and just think of that balance and reflect on it as kind of a personal decision for you and where you're at in your life right now.
Actually, I agree with you about work-life balance and how I guess I wouldn't say it doesn't exist, but I think it definitely is something that is overinflated. It's something that companies and individuals talk quite a bit about that just kind of isn't the case. It's very much a buzzword as I've said before. So when you look at travel and work, what are some kind of challenges that happen? Have there been opportunities that haven't been quite as aligned as you would have liked when it came to being able to go somewhere and succeed and be able to have that travel and work life? And how did you overcome and work through that?
So the example I gave with Thailand was kind of, I would say, an example of a time I sacrificed from travel in order to keep my career alive. And I will say, like I said before, work always comes first over travel for me. And I really think about how can I fit as much travel as possible into my non-working hours. The one thing I will say that is a really great way if you still are, if you're at a point in your career where you feel like yes, I really want to be networking. I really want to be getting myself out. I really want to be putting myself out there. I want to be building a personal brand and taking on a lot of client work and earning maybe more money, whatever that means to you. Let's just say it's like just a very intense, time demanding career. One way you can do it is be really flexible with the hours that you work. So, for most of this year, I've been traveling in like European hours. So a lot of times I'll get my deep work done in the mornings from like 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Obviously, no one in America is online at that time. The other thing I think that I've done that has made it so I can travel without sacrificing is designing my work to be as asynchronous as possible. I am very stingy with meetings and who I'll get on a meeting with. I don't take on clients that, for example, want a weekly check in call. That to me would be kind of a red flag for my lifestyle. Instead, I just try to keep meetings to a minimum and keep a lot of my communication via email. And by keeping it to that more asynchronous channel, it's easier to just be able to do the work whenever I have time. If you're in like a full-time job, that could potentially look like maybe you have a daily stand up and you create an idea with your people manager that you're going to be texting on Slack on Fridays, for example, instead of attending the daily stand up meeting. And that could be just a small way to start making your role more asynchronous. There are, I will say, certain industries where it's easier to be asynchronous than others. So when I was first starting off my career, I was doing a lot of social media management work actually. And social media management, at one point I was managing 8 TikToks and 8 Instagrams. It was in the day where there was no auto scheduler technology for TikTok and Reels had just come onto the scene and there was really no auto scheduler for Reels. There was for like Instagram posts. But because of that, I was going online multiple days a week, sometimes up to 5 days a week, and posting a TikTok and a reel in US time while I was traveling in Europe and in Asia. Um, and that was actually very stressful. And that role to me was a very synchronous role. Whereas when I pivoted my business and started to take on more email marketing clients and more writing clients and more SEO clients, the work became slightly less synchronous. There wasn't necessarily like I needed to show up on TikTok to post something at a certain time. I can just show up at my keyboard and my laptop and write whenever I have time and do SEO updates whenever I have time. So having that sort of asynchronous role really helped. So maybe the role that you have right now, there isn't a way to make it asynchronous, but there's kind of a tangential role that is slightly more independent. And so figuring out how can I shift my career towards that role so that I then have more time to travel, to live, to explore is a really great way of working at it too.
That is such great information, Angela. And absolutely, there are going to be challenges and there's going to be interferences with our travel plans sometimes, but you've obviously done a great job of studying of different ways of being able to maintain that ability to travel and set those expectations for clients and colleagues and everybody else with good systems in place. So that's super awesome. So thank you so much for that. So we're going to wrap up now. Angela, I'd love for you to share how our listeners can reach out to you if they have any questions or if they want to work with you and in your expertise.
Probably the best way to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn. I think we're going to leave the LinkedIn in the show notes, but if not, you can type in probably Angela Myers Health Writer, and hopefully I'll come up if my profile is optimized how I think it is. And I try to post a couple times there about my journey as a freelancer, my journey with content marketing, with healthcare marketing, and with digital nomading a little bit. I will say I'm not the heaviest on talking about digital nomading and travel online because while I'm passionate about it, it's kind of almost like a personal passion and not something I want to view as work, if that makes sense. And if you're curious to see what my writing looks like, you can head over to angelamyerscreative.com, which is where I have my portfolio of work, but I'm always happy to connect with people. So if you listen to this show and anything resonated or you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM on LinkedIn and we can connect that way.
Thank you so much, Angela. This has been amazing. And yes, we will share Angela's LinkedIn and website in the show notes so that you're able to reach out to her. And Angela, thank you so very much. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to this latest episode of the Know Where You Want to Go Travel podcast. We'll be back again soon with amazing topics that will help you in your travel planning, whether it involves work or not. And thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you.
You've been listening to the Know Where You Want to Go Travel podcast. Cam has been planning personal and corporate travel for over 15 years. It's what he loves to do. And with this show, we can give you recaps of our recent travel and advice on where to go and why to go there in the future. We'll give you news on things that impact travel, like COVID, and we'll throw in some places you may never have even thought about going. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit up CamJohnTravel.com and find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at CamJohnTravel. See you next time on the Know Where You Want to Go Travel podcast.